Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from the CUNY TV Foundation, Capital One Bank, Genova Burns, Giantomasi and Webster, New York Community Bank, the Witkoff Group, M&T Bank, Perfect Building Maintenance, Chase Commercial Term Lending, Greenberg Traurig, LLP, Kilroy Architectural Windows, New York's Window Company. Additional funding is provided by grants from AKA Hotels, Corman Communities, Aerial Property Advisors, Bank of America Merrill Lynch, Bank Leumi USA, Briarwood Organization, CBRE, Colliers International NYC, Cushman and Wakefield, Customers Bank, DDG, Dime Savings Bank of Williamsburg, Eastern Union Funding, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Gemini Real Estate Advisors LLC, Herrick Feinstein LLP, Hersha Hospitality Trust, Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, James Orphanides Centurion Holdings, Margolin Weiner and Evans LLP, Madison Realty Capital, Massey Knackle Realty Services, Matone Group, Meridian Capital Group, Newmark Grubb Knight Frank, New Banks, People's United Bank, RBS Citizens Bank, SJP Properties, Sterling and Sterling, Stonehenge Partners, TD Bank, Terra CRG, The Continuum Company, LLC, and these friends.
They call it Brooklyn. It is hip. Everyone wants to live, work, shop, visit. Everybody wants to be in Brooklyn. So today I've assembled this group of very illustrious individuals who all have an involvement with Brooklyn, some going back as 90 years. And they're going to tell you what's happening in Brooklyn. My guests today include Gregg Popkin, who is the COO of RFR Holdings, Michael Pintchik, who is the principal of Pintchik, Steve Benjamin, who is the COO of the Dermot companies, and last but not least, the kid from Brooklyn, my friend Jeff Levine, who's the chairman and CEO of Douglaston Development and Levine Builders. So how did you go to Brooklyn? I mean, somebody coming back from the Mayflower, okay? I mean, you didn't know Brooklyn. This wasn't something.
You're not kidding. I ask myself that all the time.
And you went into Brooklyn like in 2005?
We did, even a little sooner than that with a couple of buildings we bought in Fort Greene. Yeah.
So why did you go to Brooklyn? I mean, because you had done so many properties in Manhattan. You had some in Queens. I know you've developed something in Queens.
Right.
But how'd you make the decision in 2004 or 5 and today?
I think truthfully, we were kind of the small guys, and Manhattan was awfully big for us and running with the big fish, and we thought we could be more effective in Brooklyn and Queens, so that's where we got started.
Now, you took an iconic structure, which was considered until every new apartment house that's being built in downtown Brooklyn, the tallest building in Brooklyn. It was 512 feet high.
Still is, yeah.
Okay, you know, but now if it's like tape measures in real estate, right? You know, you get an extra couple of inches, you know. So what did you do over there for my audience? I mean, this was the Williamsburg Bank building. Everybody knew it. You know, at one time it was considered doctors' haven.
Yeah. I mean, we were early there, but we thought it was a good place for residential downtown with all the subways and everything going on. The stadium had been announced. And we saw the building as a condominium opportunity. So it ended up being 170 condo units plus a really amazing retail space that is, you know, a historic landmark and one of a kind. There was a parking lot in the back, which we also thought had some potential. So
let's fast forward 8 to 10 years. Talk to me about the new property that you're building.
Yeah, I mean,
finished now.
One of the lessons learned for us was rental downtown Brooklyn today is probably better. The economics for condo are still not really there. So we saw that, we said we like Brooklyn long, we'd like to have more investments in Brooklyn, and we decided to do a big rental, and the Flapper site came up, which we bought, and actually bought it before the crisis in 2007.
So how many units do you have on this?
325. And we're open now. We got the TCO on December 30th.
And how many apartments are leased over there?
About 10. And we're in the dead of the season, unfortunately, with our timing with the construction. So I think we'll finish leasing the building by the end of 14. We're opening the amenities in probably April. It's definitely designed to be the premier building in downtown Brooklyn from a rental perspective. I mean, the finishes are all Manhattan.
Mr. Pintchik, is it 80 years Grandpa started out there?
101 years.
Oh, 101 years. Okay, I apologize for
problem.
being a little remiss over there. So, at one time, it was tile, paint, hardware, and lots of stores. Today, it's real estate. What you've been involved as a grandchild? Okay, you were there as a kid. You know, you've seen the evolution. What's happening? And a lot of yours are right near, you know, the arena. Talk to me about what's happening in Brooklyn and what you're doing with your properties.
Well, I guess I've been involved since '74, and during that time, originally, we bought a few properties as a protective measure because a company like a Martin Paints would come in and we'd do battle with them. And after
See, it's interesting. People, if we said Bergen Tile, Martin Paint,
It's a name.
they wouldn't even know about a paint store, you know? Home Depot, Lowe's, you know, something like
right,
that.
it's a different day. So we bought some property as a protective measure, my dad did. And then when I came into the business, after he passed away, we decided we would start buying in the neighborhood. And we were fortunate to be able to create a real critical mass to the point where we can affect what the neighborhood looks like in our little corner. So we've been really editing carefully. We're trying to have a more artisanal feel to the neighborhood, as opposed to, say, a Fulton Street.
The second Shake Shack? I mean, Brooklyn, I mean, you know,
Shake Shack, we're very thrilled that they're coming. We're in construction right now, in the worst weather that you could ever imagine. We're putting in a TD Bank. We're also bringing in some great restaurateurs who unfortunately we can't announce today, but are extremely well known. And we have, we're sequencing a bunch of retail spaces so that we can keep the pipeline going. In
now you also said to me prior to the show that you're going to be taking some of these sites and you're going to be building like 7-story buildings where you'll have retail on the ground floor and then 6 floors of residential.
Correct. Yeah, we have between Grand Army Plaza and Atlantic Avenue, we have 3 sites which will support buildings ranging from about 40,000 to 55,000 feet each. And we want to be able to create some spaces so we can bring in some bigger retailers so that there'll be a nice mix. We're envisioning bringing in some home fashion, home furnishing retailers, things like that.
Mr. Popkin, you are a hotel owner, luxury apartment owner, luxury office building owner, people who take over properties and change their way, you know, like 350 Madison Avenue, the other property downtown on 5th Avenue. Now you are in Dumbo Heights?
Dumbo Heights,
AKA Jehovah Witnesses Watchtower?
the old Watchtower buildings, formerly Watchtower buildings. We see an opportunity to create something that hasn't existed in Brooklyn before. And our value proposition has been in Manhattan. We're taking that to Brooklyn, which is adaptively repositioning an opportunity or property to create jobs, bring employment to Brooklyn, expansion, growth in the retail sector, and develop what we hope will be a community that embraces the existing residents in the area and also encourages people to migrate.
Last year, they didn't accept the REAP program again. They stopped the REAP program, which is the relocation program, which gave a landlord as much as $12 for, you know, in rent savings. Do you think the fact that the REAP program has not been continued, will have an effect on some of the rents? Or do these companies who are you're targeting really even knew what a REIT program was, you know?
I think what you said is probably accurate. A lot of the companies aren't familiar with that. I don't think that the type of tenancy that we're targeting will feel that impact. The tenancy that we're looking for are companies that are visionary. They're in media, technology, advertising. They have a very strong creative sense. We do benefit from ICAP at those, at all 5 properties actually, some more than others. So there are some benefits that are driving a tenant to consider on the rent side. But what they're really looking for is the ability to have expansive creative space that's unencumbered in a modern facility, but that has an eclectic edginess to it. And that's what we're trying to embrace.
You know, you bring up edginess. We have to talk about the person from the edge. Yeah. Okay, you know, what a perfect lead-in. So, and there's a double point. You've been a visionary, you know, going out to Northside Piers, you know, with the Edge. The Edge opened up, as Steve would say, in the worst time at the, you know, the recession. Fortunately, the apartments have done, everything sold, and then the retail now has been fortunate you've sold the retail. What's happening in Williamsburg, and then we'll talk about other things.
Well, Williamsburg, as you know, has evolved tremendously over the past 10 years, in part due to the large buildings that the rezoning brought to the waterfront that we have built and continue to build. But essentially, where Williamsburg as a bedroom community was discovered first by the art community, the hospitality community, the hipsters, so to speak, it's now become everybody's community.
You're too old.
I'm not speaking for myself. What I'm saying is the rest of Generation X has now followed, whether they be bankers, lawyers, accountants, from all walks of life, have now found the lifestyle of living in Williamsburg as a result of the social amenities that exist in the community and the availability of easy transit to go to other parts of the borough and to Manhattan to all types of employment.
So
it's universally appealing at this point.
So the Edge was finished, and now you're building a second building.
Well, as you know, we completed the Edge in the worst of times and the best of times, and fortunate for us, the value was there, and we sold all the units, and we rented the portion, which was a rental. And now we have gone on to, during the downturn, purchase an adjacent piece, which was supposed to be the 3rd phase of what was known as Northside Piers. And we are now finishing up construction on a 40-story, 509-unit rental, which we're very excited about.
20% is affordable.
We know that 20% of affordable for that project has already been built and has been in operation for 2 to 3 years, similar to what we did at the Edge. So that's very exciting. And within the next few months, we will be going into the ground with the final phase of the Edge, which will be another 40-story building on the waterfront as a rental.
So why not a condominium?
Well, as my associate here has said, the reality is that the condominium market in Brooklyn is very strong, not on the same price point as the condominium market in Manhattan. We all know that in the last 2 to 3 years, from the low post-recession values of, say, $1,200 a square foot, you're not able to buy an apartment in Manhattan for less than $1,600 to $1,800 today. And those prices are only getting higher with the land escalation which is occurring. In Williamsburg, land prices too have gone up. That combined with the superheated cost of construction in a positive market makes profitability in a condominium, even at the price points in Williamsburg, which have gone from the low points of $800 to $900 to $1,200 to $1,300 at this juncture, makes it still very hard in an ordinary income environment to turn a profit.
You own properties that we just discussed that you've acquired or the family's acquired over many years. Your land basis is much less expensive than the land basis that Steve and Jeff and what Gregg are doing. You could build condominiums, and you can build an affordable condominium, as one person would say, and probably sell it out because of the convenience to mass transportation.
You know, you do what you were taught to do. And I was always taught it's better to have the cow than to sell the cow.
Keep the ownership.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's worked for us. It's
No, no, I wasn't. I'm
No,
just,
I-
I'm
yeah.
just trying to. Now, here's another thing. If you would have looked at Dumbo Heights to acquire, which you might have wanted to acquire, have you done the same approach that they're thinking of, or would you have done more of a mixed use, where because some of the buildings are relatively high, where you could probably do the special retail that Gregg is talking about, some office over here and some apartments on top, in a way like the Puck Building is today.
Well, we're all the victims of our life's experience, and I have always preferred residential development to commercial development. The age-old expression that a commercial developer can wake up in any given morning and a major tenant, be it Time Warner, could announce they're moving to a new building. Whereas in a residential building, if you have 1,000 tenants in 1,000,000 square feet, well, if 10 or 12 move in any given day, that's a bad day. So we like to say that commercial developers eat well and residential developers sleep well.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Okay, Steve has his building over there. Jeff, you going to Clinton now? Fort Greene.
Fort Greene.
Fort Greene. You're in Dumbo. You're predominantly in downtown, okay, over there. Do you see other opportunities today in other parts of Brooklyn? I mean, because of the cost element of the land being so expensive in downtown Brooklyn? Steve?
I do. Yeah, I do. I mean, we've been finishing. We got very active after the recession, and we bought some sites, and we restructured some things with some, I think, good financing, and we're finishing quite a bit of work, both in Manhattan and New York, and Brooklyn. So we don't have we're very much looking forward to new sites. There's nothing in our radar at the moment. For myself, I'm sort of waiting to see how the administration starts to roll out. I think it's very difficult on the housing side until these things get a little more clear. The bonding capacity at the state level is also very in high demand, and it's hard to see how their pipeline's going to unfold the next 2 years or so. So you got to be really careful. We like a bunch of neighborhood submarkets, as we would call them.
I mean, there's been a lot of development, and it's not too far from you, Clinton Hill. Clinton Hill, they're building.
It's very good.
It's Fort Greene, Clinton
Absolutely.
Hill. It's
Very
very hot. What about 4th Avenue? We were talking about that before. We mentioned the McDonald's site, which sold for a very large price.
Yeah.
People say 4th Avenue, and I say it's called Sunset Park. They say, it's Park Slope. I said, that's not Park Slope, it's Sunset Park. I mean, do you see those areas? I mean, especially since you've been like the king of Brooklyn, even though Jeff and I were born and bred here?
I like Gowanus.
You do?
Yeah, I love Gowanus. It has an ethos that
What
appeals.
about Red Hook?
Red Hook has a transportation issue. It's just
Great.
too far out there, whereas Gowanus, it's amazing what's happening there even right now at night. There's just a very strong vibe, energy. It's great.
Here's an interesting question, really, for Gregg and for Jeff, because both of you are in the hotel business. The chic hotels in Brooklyn, okay, or the more established, like our friend Josh Muss's, the Marriott at the Brooklyn Bridge, the Wife Hotel. Those hotels, have done well. The other ones, I call them, the Gene Kaufman Erectoset hotels, which have 180 square foot rooms, and they don't care how they run. Do you see the possibility, and do you see anything going on Flatbush Avenue that's going to be chic, because of the hospitality market?
Well, obviously, it has to happen because of the
So
affordability.
can I see a Gansevoort on?
By all means, the reality is that the chic or the boutique hotel business is driven not by the bed and breakfast, so to speak, but by the food and beverage. It's a huge accelerant to the development capability, having that food and beverage profitability finance the building along with the room rates. Having said that, with the predominance of young people moving because of the affordability of market rate housing in that downtown Brooklyn area, you're going to have to give them the amenities that they crave, which are places to go out to dine, to drink, to socialize.
Which was what Michael said about this major restaurateur going to take some space over there because people are looking at the market. They need something. You know, my joke over the years was, hey, how many places could juniors feed? Okay, before, you know, the lack, I mean, one Trader Joe's, at least now you have a Whole Foods in the Gowanus. You have a different market over there. Do you think RFR one day would venture into?
Technically, we bought a hotel when one of the buildings in the Watchtower properties is a hotel. We're not closing on that for another couple of years as part of the structure of the deal, but I absolutely agree that a boutique hotel would do very well. There's plenty of opportunity for several boutique hotels. Every day you hear announcements of new great restaurants coming to the area. And as we're able to create more opportunity for office space, Brooklyn will grow with new jobs. The population is on the growth spurt again. I just think there's huge opportunities in Brooklyn at every level.
And we were talking before about Marty Markowitz, probably during his 12-year reign, one of his biggest items was, I want that Apple store. I want that Apple store. You know, now there's rumors that Apple is going to be in downtown Brooklyn.
Well, we wanted it in the worst way, and they just weren't ready. They couldn't see it because our site directly across the street from the arena was like picture perfect for them. Now apparently they understand. They're ready, and Marty's going to get his Apple store.
So my question is, let's talk about the arena. How has the arena helped Steve's property, your properties, in general? How has the arena been a preponderance of creating business in Brooklyn?
If I can say, I think the arena has done more than create business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It has created an iconic feeling to Brooklyn. Brooklyn now, when you think of Los Angeles, you think of the Lakers. When you think of Brooklyn today,
we don't think of the Dodgers? What happened?
well, unfortunately, the Dodgers have left. So
or the
to some extent,
Cyclones?
Right.
it's given an identity, a presence. It's put Brooklyn on a larger map, which, when you consider that it is a borough of almost 2.6 million people, one of the largest cities in the United States of America, just on its own account, it deserves to be on the map, and I'm thrilled to see that it is.
I can attest to that. I do a lot of international travel. And if you took Brooklyn on its own, it would be, I think, the fourth largest city in the country. You go to Europe, everybody knows about Brooklyn. Brooklyn's hot. I mean, they sell Brooklyn T-shirts, Brooklyn hats. They want to know about Brooklyn. It's amazing.
Hey, Jay-Z got his piece of the arena. Barbra Streisand opened up at the arena. I mean, it's different. Do you see the Loews Kings, where I graduated high school from, being renovated? Do you see that part of Flatbush Avenue as a potential growth area?
Well, I see inner Brooklyn far more so than I see the outreaches of Coney Island, again, because of the transportation that exists.
But if we went to Coney Island, and the same way that Williamsburg has the ferries, can't we have a ferry from Coney Island coming to Manhattan?
If you study your map, it's a long way around the Horn to go by ferry.
$150 a trip one way,
And the reality is the ferry is wonderful. As you know, we have a ferry stop at the pier at the Williamsburg Edge Development, and it's a wonderful asset. It has increased traffic.
What about
but it's rough in the winter.
What about a light rail? I mean,
I don't think they're those are not truthfully very.
Where's the money going to come for light rail?
Now I have to.
There's no question. Coney Island with its beaches would be a wonderful amenity for all of New Yorkers if the transportation issue could be worked out. And God willing, maybe it will be someday.
Coney Island, do you see, I mean, not in the current administration of Governor Cuomo, but do you see potentially Coney Island becoming more of a casino? I'm just asking.
Don't profess to be an expert on the world of casinos. I know there is discussion over casinos going into upstate New York. We just approved.
I'm talking about the future. Okay.
It would be a better chance of that than it being a successful bedroom community.
Right, because I think, if you look at that approach, what has happened where my friend lost the site in Queens, where Genting over there, the Genting Casino is doing enormously well. It's one of the highest grossing casinos around over there. What? Here's one of the big questions which we briefly discussed prior to the show. The question of affordable housing, the lack of it, the high cost. How do we build? How do we satisfy? I mean, fortunately, depending on your land basis, and as you say, construction costs are going up. I mean, we have an 80-20 program, which has helped you to build your new building. 80-20 program, which has helped you build your new building. We hear from all the articles and all the new administration that they want a higher number of affordable. As a developer, is this doable? Steve, and then
I think it's going to be really hard. I think the economics of rental housing right now in New York are severe from the developer's point of view. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s, and I haven't, been doing it about 20 years. It's as severe as I've seen it in my period of time, not doing it nearly as long as Jeff. But to make the numbers work and all, even to do the old scheme, is truly challenging on the financials. So to change it, it's going to be a combination of like zoning favors, and it's got to be a public-private adjustment. It's not, you just can't make 50% affordable and build housing. You just can't do it.
Jeff?
Speaking about the new administration, I've had the opportunity during his term as advocate, now in his campaign for mayor, to get to know Mayor de Blasio reasonably well. I think he's very intelligent and very rational. I think I have heard him say that in his effort to create more affordable housing, which is unquestionably needed here in New York City.
No question.
It's a wonderful building block for taking those communities which need to be uplifted. I've done it in West Harlem, in East Harlem, in Brooklyn. He has been amenable towards larger envelopes, more entitlements. And I think so long as he respects the economics of the numbers, that giving more entitlements, which will result in more affordable units by virtue of a piece of a larger whole, you can achieve your goal of creating more affordable units. I think his appointment of Alicia Glenn as the deputy mayor, overseeing both EDC and HPD, indicates his recognition that the numbers are what are going to create affordable housing, not simple mandates. And I think he made a very good choice in that selection, as she had worked not only as a deputy commissioner on the Bloomberg, but also at Urban Initiatives at Goldman Sachs, where she saw both sides of the coin. I think it'll be very beneficial towards the future creation of affordable housing.
What about taxes for you on Dumbo Heights?
Well, as I said, we're fortunate to be part of the ICAP program, and we feel that those incentives will really help us attract a certain tenant base. Right now, we don't have complaints on the taxation issue, other than for the fact that there's been a lot of discussion about raising real estate taxes on the commercial side of the equation, and I think the timing for that would be very poor as we're coming out of a recession. We want to have an opportunity to create jobs and create opportunities for businesses to expand. And if we're going to saddle them with significant increases in real estate taxes, that's going to become very problematic.
You can't talk about Brooklyn in 30 minutes. So hopefully later on in the season, I'm going to have a return of the Brooklynites over there. And then we can find out what's happening in Dumbo Heights. You'll find out
I'll bring
the
the hot
restaurants. You'll tell us what's happening over there. We'll see how you're doing in rentals. So I'd like to thank everyone, Gregg Popkin, Michael Pintchik, Steve Benjamin, and never forget Jeff Levine. See you next.